Hello there, how are you doing? I am Mike Russell from musicradiocreative.com and I'm going to get into snapping. Oh, snap, in this live edition of the Music Radio Creative live stream. Really exciting stuff because I don't think enough is said about snapping in any DAW really, and how you can use it and not use it. Sometimes it gets in the way. So snapping really is the way that your cursor moves and suddenly sticks to a certain point in time when you're trying to select things. And also in the multi-track and in general editing, you can find that you're snapping. For instance, this demo I've been working on here, if I try to select a part of it now, you'll see it smoothly goes along until I get to the end where... Oh, did you see that? It just kind of sticks there. And it's sticking there because it's assuming that's the point that I want to edit to, or there. At the moment, it's sticking to certain times on the ruler up here, as you can see. Now, why is it doing that? Let's just zoom in a bit deeper. Say we were going to the end of this piece of audio here, and you can see that it's now snapping to every 0.2 of a second. Okay, this can be quite good if you're working with BPMs. If you change your ruler to actually be bars and beats instead, then you can start really snapping to the beats of a song, which can be super handy if you're editing loops and bits like that. I'm just going to change back to decimal display and show you how to turn this thing off. If snapping is not something you want, and usually when I work in Audition, I am not snapping at all. I like to have full creative control as to where my selection is going, and I maybe want it to be really fine, say like there, and not like there, snapping in there. You see, I can't select that bit. It's all a bit awkward. I can just switch it off by clicking the magnet up here, toggle snapping. Also on the S hotkey, so I can toggle it on, off if I wish. But now I can just go anywhere around that point on the ruler and see it's not snapping anymore. But there's a whole bunch of settings around snapping in Adobe Audition you may not know about. So let's look in the edit menu and snapping over here. And you can see it is enabled. It snaps to markers, by the way, if you have markers placed in your audio. I'll show you that in just a moment. At the moment, it's a coarse snap to the ruler, as you've seen, a coarse snap at every numbered point here. If I go to snap to ruler fine, a little bit more creative freedom now. You see, it's snapping to every other point on the ruler. So depending on the amount of fine-grained control you want, this can be great, by the way, if you're creating something that stutters to a beat. So we're working in 120 BPM. If I have the fine snapping on now, I can just go in and not actually delete, but say if I wanted to insert silences. Let's insert a silence here. Like so, for the exact duration. And again, I can insert a silence here. So this is fantastic if you want to create things like stutters with vocals, because it can help you accurately, exactly get and snap to the parts of your audio that you want to work with. So definitely a time and place for snapping inside Adobe Audition. Let's have a look back at that snapping option again. So we'll go back to snap to ruler coarse, but I want to focus on this snap to markers, which is usually enabled by default. Say, for instance, let's drag the playhead along and place in a couple of markers. So I'm going to place a marker here, right on the start of each vocal or each bit, and maybe a marker here, okay? Now you will find that I can snap. See, I'm snapping now to each marker. This can be handy again if you want to specifically mark sections of your audio that you know you're going to need fine-grained control like that, and snap to. This can work really well. So snapping to markers, usually enabled by default. Of course, you can go in and switch it off, and then, of course, you won't be snapping to markers. So there is definitely a big time and a place for having these enabled or not. Now, let's go into the multi-track of Adobe Audition. Just create a brand new session. I'm just going to drag in a few bits and bobs here. And you'll see some new features here, like, for instance, enable snapping to loops and clips, which is really interesting. So now, in here, you'll see I'm snapping to the start and end of every clip. So that's snapping to clips, but snapping to loops is a whole new ball game. And I'm just going to bring in a music bed here. Let's bring in something at 120 BPM. That's nice. So that's going to totally match the BPM here that I've got set up. And as you can see, everything's matching nicely there. Now, say I wanted to... Let's cut that up now from here. About there. Let's cut that and let's make a loop of this track, shall we? So Command K here. That's good. And bring that to the start. It's not quite as accurate as I'd like it to be. Now we're talking about accuracy, laser accuracy now. Let's cut that out and we've got this little loop. Now, I think if I go ahead and grab that, what am I going to do with this? I am going to actually, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do the Alt key, bring it onto its new track. And what I can actually do is, and I might do this, I might create a unique copy of that. Let's create a unique copy. So now we can't stretch that out any further unless we click loop and enable loop mode. Now we should be able to stretch it out to infinity and have a loop. See, that's an infinite loop now. And if I go into edit, snapping and snap to loops, make sure that's enabled. We can then see that, yes, snapping, it's now snapping to each first beat of the loop I've created. Super handy. So say I want 2 bars or say I want more, say I want 4 bars. This is all going to snap for me to the exact point in my loop, wherever I choose for it to be. And I can loop this round for eternity and even end this tutorial on that note. So a brief introduction to snapping and why you may want to use it and why you may not want to use it. Usually, like I say, I have it disabled so I can have fine-grained control on what I'm editing inside Adobe Audition. But you may well want to have something different enabled for your own use case, particularly if you're working with music and music mixes. What would you like me to see in the future? What would you... That made no sense. It's one of those weeks this week on the live stream. What would you like to see in the future on my channel? Go over to community.musicradiocreative.com and let me know. Thanks for watching.